Architect Divya Chakravarti. She completed her undergraduate studies from SRM University and she went on to pursue her master's in historic preservation and urbanism and study of the built environment from the University of California, Los Angeles. She went on to work for the Department of Planning and Preservation for the city of Pasadena, California. She also did a brief stint of work for Historic Scotland, Edinburgh, UK. She also worked on conservation projects like Kalsa Mahal, Gokhale Hall in Chennai, and Marimalappa Educational Trust in Mysore. She is currently working as a director of Samrakshan Heritage Consultancy. She is also a co-founder of the Artisan Reprisal of Traditional Materials, Method and Technology. She goes on to conduct workshops to revive traditional and lost methods of construction.
Welcome to the UGC lecture series for Bachelors of Architecture. The subject we are discussing is Human Settlements Planning. The topic we are delving into is Forms of Human Settlements. The topics we'll be seeing here are patterns of settlements, reasons for development, factors influencing the growth and decay of human settlements. The main component, CBD, the Central Business District. This is the commercial center of the city. It includes shops, offices, transport route centers, leisure and entertainment facilities such as cinemas, theaters, restaurants, cafes, etc. This is an area of high land value with much competition for space, tall and high density buildings to make the most of the space. It is cheaper to build up than rather outside. That is, vertically it's cheaper to build rather than horizontally because land value is so high. Few people actually live in the Central Business District. It's mostly a commercial area. The transition zone, immediately adjacent to the CBD, this zone is a state of constant change, constant redevelopment and renewal of the area to expand Zone 1, the CBD. It is a zone of mixed land uses ranging from car parks and derelict buildings to slums, cafes and older houses often converted to offices or industrial areas. This is a range of decaying buildings. This is an area of old housing and light manufacturing industries. This area dates back to the Industrial Revolution when it was filled with coal-fired factories and tenement housing blocks. High density housing built when industry thrived in urban areas. Then we have the inner city. The inner city is the third zone, commonly consisting of terraced housing built in the 19th century, originally to accommodate factory workers. Housing is often linear and back to back. This area tends to be run down unless housing has been redeveloped or gentrified. This area usually experiences social as well as economic problems. Some have now been replaced with high-rise flats in order to maximize use of space. Facilities such as corner shops exist in the inner city. Inner city problems of decline have been difficult to solve. Typical inner city with row houses or row tenements. One family would live lower and one above. So it is not actually very luxurious living, it is lower middle class. Inner suburbs, commonly 1920s to the 1950s, housing usually in large in size with a garden and it's usually semi-detached. That is, it's not completely a bungalow, but it's not even like the tenement houses. Some facilities such as parks and rows of shops may exist as more new houses and amenities are built to accommodate the growing population. The land gets cheaper away from the CBD, so planning for new houses is quite common. Home to the more affluent, council estates are often located in this zone as well. Typical inner suburbs, usually, but this is an individual family unit. Outer suburbs, modern housing large in size, often detached with a cluster pattern, that is housing estates. Ideal areas for families with young children, houses with gardens and garages and very safe roads close by. The outer suburbs contain a mixture of land uses. This includes residential areas, recreational facilities such as golf courses and farming. Access to parks and open spaces is common. Modern facilities such as shopping malls often are built in the outer suburbs. This calls for a commuter zone as it is expected that more affluent members of the community would live in this zone. Typical outer suburb, your neighbors are not very close by, but they are relatively close by to have a safe neighborhood. This is a side view transit. In the sense, this you have the CBD with a high rise, then you have the transit zone with the light industries, then you have the increasing distance. As you go away from the CBD, you have a nice big house with a garden, and then you have the individual shared units, then you have the tenements over here. So, as you move away from the CBD, as the distance increases, the level of affluence also increases. These are the typical transepts that you will see in a, this is the outer suburb, the roads, the way it's going. Importance more to pedestrian, because you won't find any modern automobile except cars over here. You will not see trucks or anything larger. Pedestrian access is given more importance. Next model is the sector model. A second theory of urban structure was proposed in 1939 by an economist named Homer Hoyt. His model, the sector model, proposed that a city develops in sectors instead of rings. Certain areas of a city are more attractive for various activities, whether by chance or geographical or environmental reasons. As the city grows and these activities flourish and expand outward, they do so in a wedge and become a sector of the city. If a district is set up for high income housing, for example, any new development in that district will expand from the outer edge. To some degree, this theory is just a refinement of the concentric ring model, except that instead of having concentric rings, this would be in wedges or sectors. Both Hoyt as well as Burgess claimed Chicago supports their model. Burgess did it at an earlier time when Chicago's central business district was surrounded by a series of rings, but now that is broken by Lake Michigan and now it's more sectorized. Hoyt argued that the best housing developed north from the CBD along Lake Michigan, while the industry located along major rail lines and roads to the south, southwest and northwest. So, to suit Hoyt's sector model, you have Calgary, Alberta, which are most perfectly suited. The assumptions of this sector model is, first assumption is land is flat. Again, if it's a hilly terrain, that's not going to be possible. Cities develop in sectors, not in rings along major attractive areas, whether by chance or geographic and environmental reasons. Building age as one move into the city center, there exists well-defined separation either ethnically or economically along transport networks. Concentration of heavy industries in certain areas. What are the limitations of the sector model? This theory is based on early 20th rail transportation and does not make allowances for private cars that enable commuting from cheaper land outside city boundaries. Physical features may restrict or direct growth along certain wedges. The growth of a sector can be limited by leapfrog land use. This is the sector model. Again, this is where you would have your central business district. Then you would have your transportation and your industry, the lavender wings that you see. Then the third sector is the low income residential, which is close to the transportation sector. Then 4 you have middle income housing, and finally the small wedge, which is least densely populated, is the higher end residential. So you can see there is even a decrease in the height of the buildings. CBD you have the skyscrapers, low income also you have some tenement kind of blocks. Transportation as well as industry, you again have a mixed level, but in the higher end as well as in the middle class residential, you have flat single units. The case study of Chicago. Chicago is a city in the state of Illinois. It's the third most populous city in the United States, and it extends into Indiana as Wisconsin. It's the third largest in the United States after New York and Los Angeles. So you have an estimated population of about 10 million people over here. This is today's Chicago. Again, you can see following the sector theory that it is divided into sectors. Here you have the central zone. Here you have the far northern side. This is the far southeast side. So you can clearly see it can be divided into sectors. and each sector has its own purpose. This is the transportation role, how the transportation also moves along the sector to help the development of this. You have the main spine over here, and each sector it gets divided with a secondary railway line or a road line. In India, you have Shivaji Nagar, which is in an area in the heart of Pune. This is the most important area of the city because it has the district court, the municipal corporation, College of Engineering, Agricultural College, Shivaji Preparatory Military School. All of this is located in Shivaji Nagar. The bus stand at Shivaji Nagar connects the city to the destinations. It has a railway station that is equally important, as well as has suburban railway traffic of Pune. This area also has roads like Ambedkar Road or University Road, which links Pune railway station to Pune University. So this actually proves to be a very important node because you can reach other areas of Khadki, Pimpri, Chinchwad and Nigdi from this particular area. So even within a neighborhood unit, the sector theory applies. You can see the central business district and then each sector having its own purpose. One is the institutional building. Here you have the railway junction. Here camp you have the commercial junction, and Guruvarpet is where you have a residential area. Narayanpet has the temple and related activities. Here you have the residential area again, which is little more upper middle class. Because of the river over here, you have a railway line which is suburban, and then you actually have a very important residential area, but not in the middle class range but lower middle class. So you can see even within a city how the sector model can apply. Another city this can be applied to is Gandhinagar. The first phase of development you have for amenities were constructed. In the second phase, the construction of the capital complex, the sports complex, town halls, research institutes, cinemas, cultural centers and residential bungalows. So even this is sector, but the sectors in this are obviously different. It's a little more gridiron sector than completely sector. Now the third important model is the multiple nuclei model. Geographers C.D. Harris and E.L. Ullman developed this multi-nuclei model in 1945. According to this model, a city contains more than one center around which activities revolve. Some activities are attracted to particular nodes while others try to avoid them. For example, a university node may attract well-educated residents, pizzerias and bookstores, whereas an airport may attract hotels and warehouses. So every purpose and important building will decide the typology of buildings that emerge. Other businesses may also form clusters, sometimes known locally as iron triangles for automobile repair, or what the not so relevant or not so liked areas like the red light districts for prostitution or the arts districts. So all of this will emerge because of a particular purpose of a particular building. Incompatible activities will avoid clustering in the same area, explaining why heavy industries and high income housing rarely exist in the same neighborhood. This model also describes the layout of a city. It says that even though a city may have begun with a CBD district, other small central business districts will also develop along the outskirts near the more valuable housing areas to allow for shorter commutes from the outskirts of the city. So as the urban sprawl increases, as the commute time increases, to reduce the time of travel, there will emerge multiple new central business districts on the outskirts near the higher income groups or the middle income groups, such that the main central business district will get decongested. This creates nodes or nuclei in other parts of the city besides the CBD, thus the name multiple nuclei model. Their aim was to produce a more realistic, if more complicated model. Their main goals in this were to move away from the concentric zone model. Second, to better reflect the complex nature of urban areas, especially those of larger sizes. This is a multiple nuclei model. We will discuss this in detail. The features, the model which we are just going to see is the multiple nuclei model has more than one center for a specific type of area. Number one, where trade and business are taking place are not necessarily going to be the CBD. You also have other places where this kind of things, such as outlying business district. So you have a central business district and a outlying business district. For the place where people are making a product, it is separated into 3 regions. Number 1, you have the wholesale, light manufacturing region, heavy manufacturing region, and the industrial suburb. For the place where people lived in, you have 4 types. You have low income residents, middle income residential, high income residential, and residential suburb. Most of these happened here again and again because of the invention of cars. So when people who are working in the office, they don't have to live very close to the CBD because the car actually allows them the freedom to travel and also have a better standard of living in the outskirts of the city. The major regions in this model are the ones that we just spoke about: the central business district, wholesale, light manufacturing region, low income residential, middle income residential, high income residential, heavy manufacturing, outlying business district, residential suburb, and industrial suburb. Central business district is the business center of a city and the central point for transportation networks. Also, this is where most of the office work is located at. In this region, you have many tall buildings because land value is higher as well as population is denser. Now, this is your central business district of the typical poly multinuclei. Wholesale light manufacturing region is the region that has light industries. So, that is small products that are manufactured here that usually are required by the heavy manufacturing region. Also, because it's close to low income residents, people who usually work in this region are lowly paid. Low income residential units are the people who usually work in these areas for lower wages. So, this is the light manufacturing unit you have close to the CBD, as well as the poor houses that you find there. The people in there usually don't have enough money to buy big houses or large lands, so it's usually sticking together with rarely any space between them, and it's usually not owned by them but completely rented out. So they are residential tenements. Bad public security, so you have more illegal activities happening there. The other thing to mention here is, if you see this in a map of a model, we can see that this region is actually closer to factories because people don't have enough money to buy an automobile, so they need to live close to the factory so they can walk to work. So this is the low income residential unit, one part of it. This is an example of a house in the middle income unit. You will not find very large lawns or anything like that, but it's a little more better and it's clustered together. High income residential has the people with high wages or sometimes people who actually own a company who live there. This region has a better standard of living, obviously, compared to the middle class residents and the low income residents. They have more things like swimming pools, larger parks. Heavy manufacturing is a region that produce heavy or large products, mostly products such as cars or steel industries. Many people from the low income residents also have to come and work here and get low wages or standard of living. So this is an outlying business district. So this is the industry that's going to support the low income groups, and because you have both an industrial area and a residential area, you have certain commercial activities surrounding this as well to support both the outlying business district. This region is far from the CBD and rest of the residential area because it produces a huge amount of pollution which lots of people don't want to live or work with unless they have no choice, like the poor people. Outlying business district is nothing but a second CBD. The business that didn't find place in the primary CBD will move here. Residential suburb is a residential area that's spaced away from other areas. In many times it's mixed use, which means it has multiple functions. Industrial suburbs is a mixed type of industrial area that is spread away from the central city. Assumptions of a multi-nuclei model: certain industrial activities require transportation facilities, ports, railway stations, etc. to lower transportation costs. Various combination of activities tend to be kept apart. Example, residential areas and airports, factories and parks, etc. Other activities are found together to their mutual advantage. Example, universities, bookstores, coffee shops, etc. Some facilities need to be set in specific areas in a city. For example, the CBD requires convenient traffic systems and many factories need an abundant source of water. Certain events benefit from adjacent distance like the position of factories and residents. In some cases, some constructions are located in less than ideal locations, often due to outside factors such as rent. Now the limitations. As multiple nuclei develop, transportation hubs such as airports are constructed, which allow industries to be established with reduced transportation costs. These transportation hubs have negative externalities such as noise pollution, lower land values, other air pollution, making land around this hub cheaper. Hotels constructed near airports because people who travel tend to stand near the source of travel. Housing develops in wedges and gets more expensive the further you move away from the CBD. So this is the multi-nuclei model. Here A, you have the first central business district, B is the zone of transition, C you have is the residential or the lower income groups, D you have the middle class, and E is the residential for the upper middle class. Now E that emerges, that you see over here, they end up wanting to have the factories as far away as possible. So close to the lower class emerges the factory or the industries where these people can walk to with ease. And then G is the emerging new central business district or the mini CBD. H is the suburb. I is the industrial park or suburb because it's close to both this and it has even nodes to transport it out. And J ends up being the commuter belt because all these goods from the industrial belt have come to the industrial park or the suburban area based on this, and it has to move out from J, which is the commuter belt. So you end up having, this can expand such that you will have another nucleus here and more people living around here. So this can develop, but the size of each sector will change and the position and shape will also change. You can see over here, this is the central business district and how the height and density of the population and buildings will also change. Factors affecting growth of settlements. There are many factors that influence where settlements can locate within a region. The site of a settlement is the actual land that the settlement is built upon. The situation is that the location of a settlement in relation to the things around it. The physical factors that influence the location of a settlement mainly is obviously water supply, because settlements need water. They often locate on wet point sites for this. They are built away from rivers and water supplies to avoid flooding are located at dry point sites. Defense, building on a higher ground obviously. Aspect and shelter, because you want to make sure your sunlight is good sunlight and you protect yourself from the overly harmful rays. Most importantly, the economic factors include communication. Settlements often located next to rivers could easily be crossed. They are called bridging points, like we have seen. Other things are resources. Early settlers relied upon wood for fuel and building. A site close to the woodland was therefore an advantage. Now resources such as iron ore, coal and bauxite are encouraged for the growth of a settlement, and you don't want such mines or factories near your settlement because it causes a lot of pollution and destroys the environment. Each center will supply particular type of goods, forming levels of hierarchy. In the functional hierarchies, generalizations can be made regarding the spacing, size and function of settlements. The larger the settlements are in size, the fewer in number they will be. That is, you will have many small villages but few large cities. The larger the settlements grow in size, the greater the distance between them. That is, villages are usually found close together while cities are spaced much farther apart. As a settlement increases in size, the range and number of its functions will also increase. As a settlement increases in size, the number of higher order services will also increase. That is, greater degree of specialization will occur in the services. For instance, if your population and the size of the settlement increases, a mere clinic will not be sufficient. You need to have a hospital or a multi-speciality hospital. Now if you move on to the next stage, now the settlements have grown. The next stage of obviously is that what is it that causes the decay of such settlements? It's a combination of environmental and social problems. One obvious result associated with economic development is rapid urbanization. This is coupled with an urban unemployment rate of 23% of the economically active population, and with its rural urban migration increasing at a rate of 5.5% per annum. So you end up having too much disparity between the poor and the rich. This creates both social as well as political unrest, leading to the fall of the government and eventually decay of the urban fabric. Rapid urbanization without support of good infrastructure will lead to overcrowding, congestion, creation of slums, and other unwanted urban elements. And as a byproduct of urbanization, there will be excessive construction and business developments, which will lead to uneven distribution of services and a greater divide between rich and poor. Many cases of gentrification will lead to the exclusion of certain population groups and reduce the character of the city. Gentrification actually means as the population of a city increases, an entire low community group or a distorted area which has been under distress for a while, economic distress, a couple of businesses will get together, fund that area. They will end up having a good restaurant, they'll build a very good commercial center or a mall. So once that happens, people will start moving to that area, and that area, from becoming a unwanted poor low income group area, will become a wanted middle income to a high income commercial area. And once the commercial area is fixed, then the residential area around it will improve, as well as the land cost will also increase in this case. And once the land cost increases, that area is considered gentrified. Environmental degradation, like various types of pollution, water, air and noise, depletion of natural resources, and as a result causing escalation of prices or forcing communities to move elsewhere. That is also a form of gentrification. Combination of social and environmental problems, they are usually mutually exclusive, they needn't depend on each other, are the main reasons for decay of human settlements. At the end of this lecture, we have seen the patterns of settlements, reasons for development, factors influencing the growth and decay of human settlements. At the end of this lecture, we should be able to answer the following questions. Define the following terms: A, inner city; B, outer suburbs. How important are the physical factors for site selection in today's context? What is the sector model of human settlement? Describe the multi-nucleated model of human settlement. What are the factors that affect the growth of a human settlement? And what are the factors that cause decay of a human settlement? That brings us to the end of this lecture. Thank you.